So what's going on guys, Kate is here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the top 3 full tank builds after the update for PvP and PvE in New World. So for each and every single build I will explain what attributes and perks you want to have, then what gems and specific gear you want to use to get out your stats as much defensives and damage as possible. Then as well I will show you the best gameplay of me using different weapons so you would know which abilities you want to use first on your enemies and much more. So if all this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the first build, which is the Void Gauntlet and Sword with Shield. And these are the attributes you want to have. So first things first, if you start from level 0, you want to get your focus to 150 and then start building your constitution. And around level 60, you should have 200 focus and 200 constitution. And last but not the least, for your gear you want to go with full heavy armor and you have to use a shield as well. So then moving over to the first weapon, which is the Void Gauntlet, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Void Blade and then get these 3 perks. Then afterwards unlock the second ability called the Petrifying Scream and then unlock the next 2 perks to him as well. Then now let's go over to the other side and unlock the last third ability, which is called the Orb of Decay, and then get all these 3 perks, and that's it. So then for our second weapon we have the best tanking weapon, aka the Sword with Shield, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, right off from the start you want to unlock all these 3 abilities called the Shield Rush, Shield Bash and Defiant Stance, and then afterwards get all these 5 perks. Then after you have unlocked those perks you want to unlock these 3 more perks. And yes, the way I said it, you should unlock the first 5 perks and then the only 3 perks. And this will give you a slight advantage than just normally unlocking perks and abilities in whatever order you wanted. And then lastly, let's move over to the left side and get these 3 perks, and that's it. Now again, you can unlock all the other perks in whatever way you like. Okay, so let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. So first of all, for the Void Gauntlet we have the first Q ability called the Void Blade, and after activating you basically get a Void Dagger, which you can use like any other melee weapon, and by using auto attacks not only you will do a lot of damage but as well reduce your enemy's damage absorption. Then the second ability is called the Petrifying Scream, which when using will deal damage, stagger and root enemies in front of you for 2 seconds. And lastly we have the third ability, which is called the Orb of Decay, and you can fire this orb which can go through your enemies, and each enemy that it hits it will deal decent damage and reduce their damage absorption, and then later that orb will come back and heal your nearby teammates and yourself. And lastly, if you hold the right mouse button you can get your mana back, but it will remove your health. So for this specific build I definitely do not recommend to use this mechanic. Then moving over to the second weapon, which is the sword, and for your Q spell we have the Shield Rush ability, and this spell makes your character run very fast for 5 meters. If you hit the target while running he will get knocked back. Then our second ability is called the Shield Bash, which when using will deal decent damage and stun your targets in front of you for 2 seconds. And if you're using this ability in PvE you can generate threat level, and as a tank pull mobs on you. And then lastly we have the third ability called the Defiant Stance, which you can activate, and for the next 8 seconds your resistance is increased. Or again in PvE as well you can activate the spell and increase your threat level again, which will make all mobs target you. So like you can see, not only all these spells will stun and knock back our enemy, but as well they're useful in PvE. So in general this build is all around a great choice for all activities in the game. So the best way to attack a player is first of all use your sword and shield, and while blocking move to the target. Then when you're close enough use your Shield Rush and knock the enemy back. Then when he gets back up stun him with a Shield Bash. And now switch to the Void Gauntlet and activate the Void Blade ability, and keep on auto attacking the enemy while using both F and R abilities. Then lastly, to protect yourself I always save it for later, but if a lot of damage is incoming then switch to the sword and use your Defiant Stance ability, and all of your resistance will be increased for 30%. So just remember that as a tank you use Void Gauntlet to still do damage to enemies from afar, or use it to pull mobs from very far distance without you having to run to them, and then at the same time you can switch to the sword and shield and be a real strong tank. So with all this said, now let's go over my final conclusions for this build. This Void Gauntlet and Sword with Shield weapon combination is very good for group PvP as well PvE, And then last but not the least, for the Void Gauntlet you want to use the Opal Gem. And then for your sword you want to go with the Amber Gem for PvP and use the Carnelian Gem for PvE. And lastly, for all of your gear, get the Enix Gems, and that's about it. And of course, when you're using the sword, don't forget to keep on using your heavy rolls, so your stamina would not be at 100%, and this will increase your damage by 15%. And we chose to go with the Amber Gem to make the sword go from strength attribute to now scale with focus. And by doing that, we increase our damage, and at the same time, we don't have to spend any points in strength category. So if you're looking for the new best tank build, then this is the one for you, so enjoy! So then, moving over to the second build, which is the Great Axe and Warhammer, and these are the attributes you want to have. So then, no matter from which level you start using this build, you first of all want to get your strength to 100 or even 150, and then start building your constitution. And around level 60 you should have 200 strength and 200 constitution. And then last but not the least, for your armor you want to be in the heavy category, which means using again all heavy equipment plus a shield on your back if you want to get as many cool things as you can. But for this build it's not required and won't give you any extra stats or anything like that. So then for our first weapon we have the Great Axe, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Reap and then get these 2 perks. Then afterwards unlock the second ability called the Charge and then get these 2 perks. Then from this point now let's move over to the other side and unlock all these 3 perks. Then lastly unlock the last third ability called the Gravity Well and then get these 3 perks. And now from this point you'll feel free to pick and choose which perks you want to unlock next. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the Warhammer, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Clear Out and then get these 2 perks. Then afterwards unlock the second ability called the Shockwave and then get these 2 perks. And lastly unlock the last third ability called the Path of Destiny and then get these 2 perks. And now from this point let's take a closer look at the left side and unlock all these 3 perks, and that's it. Now again you can spend your points in whatever order you like. So then let's move over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this tank build and how to get out of your abilities the best possible results. So first things first, for your Great Axe Q ability we have the Gravity Well, which you can aim and shoot, and if you hit the target in that electric storm he will take damage and get stunned. Then the second ability is called the Reap, which basically extends your axe for 5 meters, and if the enemy is running away you can pull him back. And lastly we have the F ability called the Charge, and this is another dash ability which will deal decent damage and give you more mobility. And now let's go straight into the Warhammer, and the first Q spell is called the Clear Out, and it is a wide swing that knocks back all targets in 4-meter range. Then our R ability is called the Shockwave, and when using the spell it will give us the ability to slam down the hammer and create a small earthquake, and all players standing in it will get stunned for 2 seconds. And lastly we have the F ability called the Path of Destiny, which creates a huge electric wave, and all enemies standing in this path will take bunch of damage. So the way you want to attack a player is by using your Great Axe and then activating the Gravity Well, and then follow that up with the Charge ability. Then when the enemy is out of all of your stuns he will probably try to run, so use the Reap ability and pull him back. Now switch to the Warhammer and either way use your Shockwave or Path of Destiny to stun or deal damage, or save it for later, and keep on using auto attacks plus the block, so you do 1 or 2 normal attacks and then block in between. So like you can see with this build there's no one best way to use your spells. The most important thing is to know what each ability does, and with time and practice you will know what to do in each situation. Then my first step for this build is if you're fighting against another melee player, then like I said use 1 or 2 normal attacks and then in between remember to use blocking system. But if you fight against a ranged player then don't forget to use the heavy jumps, and to reach a player don't just run into a straight line but try to run from one side to another, and this will make you a lot harder target to hit. Okay, and now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This Great Axe and Warhammer weapon combination right now is super good, and as you're using a heavy armor you can still survive for very long, but at the same time deal bunch of damage. So then lastly for your Warhammer and Great Axe for PvP you want to use the Opal Gem, and then for PvE use the Carnelian Gem, and then for all of your gear get the Enix Gems. So if you were looking for a tank build that does still a lot of damage and can survive, then this is the build for you, so have fun. So then moving over to my last and final build, which is the best healer slash paladin tank build. And for the weapons, you want to use the life staff and sword with shield. And then these are the attributes you want to have. So first things first, if you start from level 0, you want to get your focus to 150 and then start building your constitution. And around level 60, you should have 250 focus and 150 constitution. And last but not the least, for your gear, you want to go with full heavy armor and you have to use a shield as well. So then moving over to the first weapon, which is the life staff, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all, you want to unlock this perk and then the first ability called the Sacred Ground, and then afterwards unlock all these 5 perks. Then now let's go over to the other side and unlock this one perk, and then the second ability called the Beacon, and then get these 2 perks. Then lastly unlock the last third ability called the Light's Embrace, and then get these 2 perks as well. And now from this point, you're for free to spend your points in whatever order you like. So then for our second weapon, we have the sword, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, right off from the start you want to unlock both these 2 perks and then get the first ability called the Leaping Strike, and then get these 2 perks. Now from here, let's move over to the other side and unlock the second ability called the Shield Rush, and then get these 4 perks. Then lastly unlock the last third ability called the Defiant Stance, and then get these 2 perks. And now from this moment, you're feel free to pick and choose which perks you want to unlock next. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. So then for the life staff, your Q ability is called the Sacred Ground, which you have to point and select the area you want to place it in, and then cast it for a split second. Then the R ability is called the Light's Embrace, and it basically works the same way, just for a single target. And as well, you can heal yourself by holding the control button and activating the spell. And lastly, we have the F ability called the Beacon, which you can just aim and it places a huge circle on the ground. And if you target a player, you can attach the spell to him specifically. So instead of the circle being on the ground, it will be attached to a player, making the spell very useful in PvP. So then for our second weapon, we have the sword, and the first Q spell is called the Leaping Strike, which basically is a damage ability that makes you leap for 6 meters to the enemy. Then the second ability is called the Shield Rush, and the spell makes your character run very fast for 5 meters. And if you hit the target while running, he will get knocked back. And then our third ability is called the Defiant Stance, which you can activate, and for the next 8 seconds your resistance is increased. So then for the actual way to play this build, it doesn't matter if you're by yourself in open world or in PvE, your main mission is to stay alive and be unkillable, while still annoying enemies and helping out your teammates with healing. So the way you want to play it is first of all use the sword and activate the Leaping Strike or the Shield Rush abilities whenever you want to attack an enemy, and always save your Defiant Stance ability on when the enemies are about to deal a lot of damage. Then as far as your healer spell combinations go, it is your own personal preference, but if you can, and in the best case scenario, always use Beacon ability first and then the Light's Embrace ability, and this will increase your healing. And then if your teammates are grouped up and low health, use the Sacred Ground ability. And as the Light's Embrace ability has super low cooldowns, you can basically spam it every 2-3 seconds. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This life staff and sword with shield weapon combination is not meant to deal a lot of damage, but instead it's built to survive multiple players by yourself and still have the option to help out your teammates and do a bunch of damage to the enemies. And then lastly, for your life staff, you want to use the Diamond Gem, and then for your sword, use the Amber Gem for PvP, and for PvE, use the Carnelian Gem. And then for all of your gear, amulets, rings and everything else, use the Enix Gems. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for the best support tank build that players won't be able to kill you in, then this is the build for you, so don't forget to enjoy. And that's about it. So I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good tank builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I'll catch you in my next video. So take it easy, peace. Yo, I ain't here